A very good morning to Anjali ma'am and everyone who has joined in for this super exciting session on climate technology and innovation. My name is Tanvi Singari and I'm a part of the climate tech sector here at Startup India and will be moderating the session for today. Given the importance of combating the harsh effects of climate change and how innovation and startups can be a forerunner in this journey, we're excited to hear from Ms. Anjali Bansal. Sharing a brief about our guest today, she is the founding partner of Avaana Capital and Sustainability Fund. She was a non executive chairperson of Dena Bank, appointed by the Government of India to steer the stressed bank's resolution and merger with Bank of Baroda. Prior to that, Anjali was a global partner and managing director with TPG Growth PE, responsible for India, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Middle East, and a strategy consultant with McKinsey in New York. Moreover, she has invested in various successful startups, including Nykaa, Delivery, Urban Company, Darwinbox, Farmart, and climate tech leaders like Turno, Terra.do, and Aki. She has also co founded and chaired the FICCI program for women on corporate boards. She has been listed as one of the most powerful women by India's leading publications, Business Today, Fortune India, and Forbes India. I would like to welcome you to this session today, and we are eager to hear more from you, ma'am. Over to you, Anjali, ma'am.
Thank you, Tanvi, and thank you to Startup India. I think the Innovation Week,
Ma'am, I think you're on mute. We're not able to hear you.
I am not on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there is a system lag. Uh, Thank you, Tanvi. I'm delighted to be here. And thank you very much to Startup India also. I think the Innovation Week, ever since Startup India was created, has now become a hallmark in the startup calendar for the year for India. So I think Innovation Week keeps going from strength to strength. I'm delighted to be here today and share with you what we are doing at Avaana, but also more broadly across climate tech innovation and the big problem you have to solve through innovation here as well as the opportunity it actually presents. Can I request Tanvi, you or someone to please put the slides on screen? I'm going to walk all of you through a few slides, and you'll have to forgive me. I have a frog in my throat, which I know is not unfamiliar to most people in India right now. All of us have some sort of upper respiratory issue. Okay. Um, what is Avaana? We are capital for climate. Let's talk about why is this important. So I said the slide is sustainability is the next digital. Actually, sustainability is bigger than digital. So when I started in business 30 years ago, companies did not have a CTO other than the Silicon Valley companies at that time. Digital was not even on the horizon. Today, every aspect of enterprise functioning, every aspect of our life, how we work, how we live, how we interact with each other is digitalized. So digital has now become a horizontal. The same thing has to happen with sustainability over the next couple of decades. In fact, there is a sense of urgency here. It has to happen very quickly. So, the sustainabilization of human society and human economy needs to happen very, very rapidly. We are running out of time. India and the global south, we don't have the luxury of saying, hey, we will only think about the planet. We have to think holistically about planet and our people and prosperity. India is, as we all know, uh, the largest young population in the world. We are the fastest growing large economy. And yet, our carbon footprint and our consumption is one-fifth of the global average. What this means as India keeps going through our growth journey over the next 25 years, 25 years is our Amrit Kal really. And as we go through that, uh, we will have to think about fundamentally lower carbon growth pathways for our growth where we are able to grow without disproportionately contributing to further global warming, right? Honorable Prime Minister laid out the Panchamrit model at COP in Glasgow 2 years ago. We have our nationally defined priorities and goals, the NDCs, and following the Panchamrit framework, the life model that the government has also laid out, I think there is a lot that can be done. So this is the problem side of the statement. What is the opportunity? The opportunity is for a country like ours, with a large technology base, a very, very vibrant startup ecosystem, much like we have leapfrogged in other areas. So we have leapfrogged from going from cash economy to digital through UPI and payments. We now have leapfrogged from fixed line telephony now to the lowest cost digital data network in the world, and leading to the third largest number of unicorns anywhere, with the third largest startup ecosystem. We are excited that a number of, I hope, folks on this session as well, some of the young entrepreneurs who are fearless will take technology, take innovation, and apply it to the climate problem. And India will leapfrog on climate solutions. And honestly, what you solve in India today for 1.4 billion people is relevant not just for us, but actually for the global south. So let's talk about what does climate action mean. Climate action. Let's break it up into mitigation, adaptation, and resilience following the COP framework, which is the UN framework. Mitigation is all about reducing emissions and limiting global warming through reducing the emission of GHG, greenhouse gases, CO2, and others. So, clean energy, carbon sequestration, carbon removal, low carbon intensity inputs, processes, all of that is mitigation. Adaptation is responding and adjusting to climate impact, which means creating more climate resistant products and processes, resource efficiencies, reducing the energy consumption, treatment and management of natural resources like land, air, water. Uh, we can all see how we are all suffering with bad air right now. And resilience is climate proofing our economic and social systems. India, in particular, we have a very large vulnerable population that is, and are parts of our economy that are vulnerable to climate. So, agriculture, if you take as an example, very, very dependent on monsoon cycles, very dependent on soil quality, water availability, all of which under stress right now. Currently, about 80% of global climate funding is going into mitigation. Mitigation tends to be a focus area for the global north. For developing countries like ours, adaptation is the here and now. We have to figure out how to make the transition happen in a just and equitable way from a high carbon to a lower carbon growth pathway. I will speak more about that as we go forward. We have seen increased activity in climate tech investing across sectors. Literally, in the last year, we have invested more in climate tech globally than in the last 5 years combined. That said, globally, the world needs more than 300 trillion to actually reset and move into this lower carbon growth pathway for transition. India itself needs about $10 trillion dollars in climate finance to achieve our net zero goals as laid out by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2070. This will be required across early innovation to late stage project finance. So we need uh, the full capital stack, right? So apart from startups, large investments that are already happening in utility scale renewable energy. I think renewable energy and utility scale, CNI scale renewable energy in particular is a great example. 15 years ago, it was considered developmental, it required subsidies. Today, it is commercially viable. Why is it commercially viable? Because a new unit of renewable actually costs less than a new unit of thermal. It makes business sense. Technology cost curves have shifted. It is cheaper. It is accessible. And so enterprises and individuals both are choosing and opting. It makes business sense. They're choosing the cheaper source of energy. Similarly, we have to make this transition, which is where startups and innovation play a very important role across the entire spectrum of climate action: energy, water, circular economy, plastic replacement, waste management, agriculture, and others. So let us talk about that. We look at climate as a theme, not a sector for investment, and technology being the key lens, technology and innovation, and climate being the other key lens. So everything that we invest in has to solve for mitigation, adaptation, or resilience. Which are the sectors? The three sectors that we have chosen to focus on are the ones that contribute to about 90% of the emission footprint of the country. So it's a large part of the problem, and also about 70% of the economy. So a large market opportunity. So I'll keep talking about the problem statement and the opportunity really as two sides of the same coin, because whenever you have very, very large scale and very rapid transitions, much like we are doing the step shift from high carbon to low carbon, it throws up opportunities for investment and value creation and returns as well. Energy and resource management, self-explanatory really, 40% of India's emission footprint. We have a national renewable target of 500 gigawatts by 2030, a significant, and by the way, India actually, we have achieved our, as was discussed in the last COP in Dubai in December, we have actually achieved our renewable energy goals almost 6 years ahead of target. So we are already there, but by 2030, getting to 500 gigawatts ahead of our targets is the goal. And in addition to that, we will require grid scale energy storage and distribution, decentralized renewable energy, not just at the grid level, but off grid, microgrid, green buildings and built environment. 75% of India's infrastructure that is in our infrastructure plan for 2047 is yet to be built. So big opportunity here to build it right, to build it green. Land, air, water. I spoke about that. I think there's a lot of energy that is embedded in water as well. And when we when we think about water as a critical resource for human life and society, for businesses where water is an input, water is also an effluent, and for agriculture, these are very important areas for both innovation and large business creation. Next is mobility and supply chains. In supply chains, we continue to have a less than ideal uh, cold chain across India, transport system across India. Of course, digitization is helping. What we have seen with UPI and ONDC, now we are seeing with Gati Shakti as well. So digitization leads to decarbonization, efficiency creation, and value creation. Uh, Electric mobility, of course, we have seen a dramatic increase in the presence of EVs on the road, supported by the government's FAME 2 and other policy schemes. And we'll speak more about the role that policy plays in this transformation in a short while. And the third is sustainable agriculture and food systems. I mentioned this earlier. We are still a fairly large agrarian economy and agrarian society. About 80% of our water usage also is in agriculture. We have 60% of our population that lives in rural areas in the agricultural society as well. And in addition, when you have large scale climate events, extreme climate events like extreme heat, we have destruction of food, we have erratic monsoon or flooding, that leads to destruction of crops also. So, moving towards sustainable inputs, climate resilient agricultural processes, precision agriculture, regenerative agriculture, and other circular platforms are important elements of the climate problem as well as the climate opportunity. Let us talk a little bit about where we have invested. In fact, I'll speak about IKI, which is a great example of climate resilient agriculture. IKI, in fact, was awarded the most sustainable startup in the National Startup Awards by Honorable Chief Commerce and Industries Minister a couple of days ago in Delhi. But IKI has a patented plant growth system for climate resilient vegetables. So this is not exotics and leafy greens, but this is everyday tomato, eggplant, cucumber, green chili. So Bharat ki sabzi. They have taken the food growing process, a plant growing process, disaggregated it almost like uh, assembly line manufacturing, and without the use of greenhouses, highly energy efficient, 80% less water usage. They are able to grow tomatoes at 10 rupees a kilo in the extreme climate of Kota in Rajasthan. So think about this, 50 degrees Celsius temperature outside, here in their patented controlled growth environment growth chamber, they are able to maintain root temperature at 27 to 30 degrees. So again, indigenously created technology. Two young people, young founders out of IIT Bombay, working with a professor from IIT Jodhpur, have created this patented solution from India for Bharat, but for Bharat, from Bharat, and for the world. They're already getting inbound interest from, say, the GCC countries, because if you can grow this at 50 degrees Celsius in Kota, you can also do this in the Middle East. Aram is a platform that is providing access, both cheaper and more reliable access to rooftop solar for MSMEs. So this is a two-sided market model. On the one hand, the rooftop owner, the MSMEs, do not currently have access to large-scale, cheap, renewable, particularly rooftop solar. At the same time, the installer community is also micro entrepreneurs low on skill. So Aram is bridging this gap. So they are working with the installers, helping to digitize them, at the same time creating discovery and procurement and better quality assurance for the rooftop solar installation that MSMEs are installing. They have, again, a proprietary solution called AROC that does real-time monitoring of the solar rooftop and is able to provide better uptime, better predictability, and consequently also leading to financing linkages where they are working with their own NBFC, also with across the ecosystem with some of the large banks in Sydney and so on, in providing low-cost financing. Kazam is a very interesting company in the mobility space. So I mentioned earlier, electric mobility. The value of electric mobility is to take, first of all, of course, you take the greenhouse gas emission, the tailpipe exhaust out of highly sort of densely populated areas and take it, put it into the power station, right? Because the electric vehicle is not creating emissions. Of course, the next step is to green the grid. But Kazam is creating the interoperable and open system layer to connect in a hardware agnostic manner OEMs with charge point operators as well as with fleet operators. So the big bottleneck today for a faster adoption of EVs is one of the things is charging infrastructure. So Kazam is actually increasing the footprint that is accessible to any vehicle operator by the proprietary solution that they have created. They are today the largest solution of its kind in India, end-to-end platform for electric vehicle charging. They do not operate physical infrastructure, but they work across existing physical infrastructure. They've also been now invited to participate in Southeast Asia in the partnership with Petronas. So again, we are seeing how solutions that are being created in India for Bharat are actually accessible and relevant for the global South. Centra is an example of a company that is working with data and AI and very, very smart systems to do tracking, reporting, and reducing enterprise environmental footprint for the very hard to abate sectors. So they're working with steel, cement, power sectors for scope 3 measurement, mitigation, reporting, and eventually leading to solutioning. They are also active across the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia. So all of these are examples of proprietary, indigenously created technology by our entrepreneurs, by the young startup ecosystem in our country that is now going across the global south and soon across the globe. So I'll pause here. We will come back with questions. I know, Tanvi, we will have some audience questions as well. But let us speak about how we work. Solving for climate cannot be done only through investing. So, of course, capital is required, but more than capital, really, uh, it is an area that needs industry linkage because large scale adoption will happen through industries, large companies. Similarly, a lot of the early research and the solutioning happens through academic institutions, through incubators, and across the world. And in India, we are again fortunate to have a very, very supportive policy regime. Policy plays a very important role. In the US, for example, IRA has really led to a lot of investment in climate. In India, we've seen the National Renewable Mission, EV mission, now the production linked incentive schemes for solar, for hydrogen, and a lot of support that is coming, of course, from Startup India, DPIIT, but also from the DST, BIRAC, CCAMP, and so on. So at Avaana, we work across the ecosystem. We work very closely with the entrepreneurial ecosystem where we find, source, support startups. But given our past backgrounds, we are deeply connected into industry. So we work across the large industrial groups, consumer companies, built environment companies, and technology companies. And I've put up a few logos here where we are able to provide sandboxing, piloting opportunities, early go to market, and revenue acceleration for our companies. Um, We'll talk about the grand challenge for climate, which is bringing this ecosystem together again towards the end of the session. And on the policy and academia side, across industry associations, CII, PICI, Bombay Chamber, and of course, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, as well as leading academic institutions in India, IIT, IISc, as well as globally with Columbia, Stanford, Princeton, and others. Capital and catalytic capital plays an important role, both in terms of providing equity from startup funding, innovation funding, but also grant capital that comes from the various incubator programs. And further, credit for growing the enterprises. So this is what really creates this flywheel of deal flow and value addition. We see about 800 to 1,000 deals every year in climate, so it's very exciting to see the level of entrepreneurial opportunity. Given our expertise, and climate does require a lot of technical science expertise and industry backgrounds, we are able to both track emerging spaces um, and attract deal flow because we are in these conversations constantly. We publish a lot, we speak a lot. Our diligence uh, allows us and enables us to pick winners better because of, again, industry connects. We are able to check what will work, what will not work. And then post investment, we work closely with our companies for business building, team building, and eventually for the fundraising and particularly on go to market and revenue acceleration. I spoke about ecosystem. So going back, Avaana really sits at the center of these interconnected ecosystems, which we bring together in a very cohesive, integrated way. So what do? We've started the Climate Corner. I'm hoping some of you have attended some of our Climate Corner events. Climate mixers for founders, for deep tech founders, bringing together partnerships across government, think tanks, industry bodies. Um, we do a lot of in-person mentorship events as well as networking events for founders, as well as with companies, large industry, podcasts, fireside chats, and so on. I mentioned some of our university collaborations. We've been invited and we have spoken at Princeton and the Net Zero Lab. We have engaged with the Harvard Business School Net Zero Lab as well, and working very closely. We are the first India partner for D3, which is the research and incubation arm of Rocky Mountain Institute, the world's biggest climate research institute. Um, and similarly, we can keep going. We are the only Indian tech VC to feature on the CTVC, which is the definitive list of climate tech VCs globally. So, a lot of work being done to create the ecosystem, to power it, and get more to flow, and also putting India really on the global climate tech map. We'll share with you one example. Very recently hosted the Climate Conference 2024 along with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in Mumbai. So the first of its kind private sector engagement, because you see, to achieve climate goals, the NDCs, it's not just the government or just the private sector. We all have to work together. And this conference, which was held in Mumbai on the 12th, we were very fortunate to get the senior most people from government, Madam Secretary from MOEFCC and her leadership team. We had G20 Sherpa Shri Amitabh Kant, who is always a great champion of innovation and now particularly climate as well. He opened the session with keynote. We had a startup showcase and we featured multiple startups there: Kazam, Iki, the UEI, the Unified Energy Interface that is being created by Beacon. And then we had a number of plenary sessions attended by 140 plus people, students, industry leaders, founders, as well as policymakers. So this is really the full ecosystem at work here. Then I will pause and see if there are further questions. Otherwise, I will very quickly share who is Avaana, who are we? We are a team of really mostly engineers and technologists, but people who understand science and technology and are particularly passionate about applying innovation to solving large problems. So, Avaana itself is a wordplay on Avahan, which is a Sanskrit word for call to action. So, we are a team with extensive experience across investment, business building, business operations, entrepreneurship, science and technology, and in addition to our team, we have a terrific program for young fellows who come and join us. They are PhDs and masters. And so if there are folks who are attending this session who want to spend 6 months to a year working on climate problems, please write to us. Um, we have a deeply engaged advisory board that comprises of people like Sandeep Singhal, who created one of India's largest venture funds, Nexus Venture Partners, has been investing in technology for 20 plus years. Mr. Ramadurai needs no introduction. TCS, very, very involved with climate on the board of CEW. Mr. Anami Roy, Mridula Ramesh, who is a climate expert herself, an operator, founder of the Sundaram Climate Institute, and Sega, who is a global ESG expert. So, friends attending this session, this is the team, Team Avaana. This is Shruti, Rahul, Swapna, and Anjali, all of us who are passionate about solving for climate and come with various previous experiences. Tanvi, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your invaluable insights. It was actually really inspiring to listen to all the successful startup stories that you just told us today. I'd like to go ahead and ask you a couple of questions that our audience would like to know. The first one being, as a founding partner of Avaana Capital, how do you approach investing in climate-related technologies? What criteria do you consider when evaluating startups or projects that aim to address environmental challenges?
Great question, Tanvi. So let me go back to our climate framework. So first of all, we only look at investments that are solving for climate. So climate action is not an outcome. It is not enough to say, hey, it is ESG. You've done something and now you're trying to correct it and hence ESG. We only invest in technology solutions that are in these spaces: energy and resources, mobility and supply chains, sustainable agriculture, food systems, and of course, built environment, industrial decarbonization, circular economy, waste management. What is the we look at four specific criteria. What is the size of climate problem that it is solving? It is solving for mitigation, adaptation, or resilience. What is the size of market? What is the size of problem? Large problem. Okay. Next is what is the innovation? So there has to be either a product innovation or a process innovation. It's not just having capital is not the moat. There has to be a technology differentiator and a technology moat to it. It can be a business model or it can be a technology. That's the second piece. The third is what is the quality of the team? Uh, the quality of founders and all of us as early stage investors, you know that the business model will pivot over time. The technology itself will evolve. So Iki, when we invested, they were deploying their first generation growing chamber growing system. Now they are into their second generation of growing system. Third generation will be rolled out next year. So technology will evolve, business model will evolve. But what is core is founder quality. Is this the right founding team that can solve that? Remember, number one was the large climate problem, and number two was the technology. So is this the right team with learning agility, with great tenacity? And I must say, I'm always in awe of entrepreneurs because they have so much courage to take risk. So, are these the right founding team? Generally, solo founders, we encourage them to build a team around themselves and not try and go it alone. Entrepreneurship is a lonely journey. No reason to do it ekla cholo. You should collect a team around you. And of course, as early investors, we are supportive. So, what do we look for? Size of problem, core innovation around technology, product, process, or business model, the right quality of team, and finally, as investors, we have to look at what is the deal dynamic and is this a situation that will create the right level of returns for the fund and our investors. We also have investors. We are structured somewhat differently. We are patient capital. We recognize that this space is not very well understood. We come into it with deep expertise. So we work closely with our portfolio companies. We also reserve a lot of capital for follow on funding and we help them build the capital stack while they are building their business. So that's what we look for.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure if we have any budding climate tech entrepreneurs in the audience, this would be really helpful for them. Moving on, as you also spoke about innovation and the importance of innovation, moving on to the next question. The intersection of technology and sustainability is crucial for combating climate change. In your experience, what role do you think innovation plays in driving sustainable solutions? And how can businesses and entrepreneurs leverage technology to make a meaningful impact on the environment?
So I think much like we have seen, technology and digitization has played a big role in accelerating, say, consumer behavior or payments for that matter, or enterprise SaaS. Similarly, and again, I will go back to a few examples, maybe take different examples. Um, let's take Carbo Ledger, young company working on product level carbon footprinting in the chemicals industry. Now, 10 years ago, that may have been less possible, or for that matter, if we even look at what Centra is doing with building the carbon scope 3 footprint measurement mitigation. Earlier, it would have been all manual or calculated manually. Today, you do have the technology that is available. They're using AI tools, ML tools to collate information, to process information, and create much better decisioning. Uh, let's talk about Iki. Iki is able to do 80% less water usage. They have hardly any wastage because they are deploying sensors. So this is the growing chamber. In the growing chamber, they're deploying sensors, collecting real-time IoT data, and thus doing closely monitored precision delivery of nutrients through misting of water, and which leads to 80% less water usage. Right? So this is industrial scale farming, which is being done. If you have science fiction fans here, and if you've seen The Martian, the movie, what Matt Damon was trying to do on Mars, these guys have actually done it on Earth at scale. So very, very exciting. So this is how different types of technology can be digital technology or AI technology. This is here is material science. Of course, there is solar that Aram is working on. And similarly, we are seeing what Kazam is doing. We are looking at a lot of companies in the battery energy storage space. So creating decentralized storage that helps provide grid stability and carbon management. We're looking at companies that are using biochemical microbial processes to generate green hydrogen, biohydrogen using bacteria. So a lot of innovation that is going across the ecosystem right now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very interesting to know that. Moving on to the last question. Collaboration is often key in addressing complex global challenges. How do you see partnerships between government, private sector entities, and non-profits contributing to the development and deployment of climate technologies? And also, are there any specific models or initiatives that you believe showcase effective collaboration in this space?
Certainly, again, climate is a such a large, such an extreme problem, and so much urgency around solutioning that it will require all parts of our ecosystem to come together. Collaborations across some of the not-for-profit incubators, and we work closely with the Startup India Seed Fund scheme, as you know, Tanvi, know that Startup India runs, and the close to 400 plus incubators across that government ecosystem, supported a lot by Startup India again, BIRAC, DST, um, and so on, where the Atal Innovation Mission, the Atal incubators that are core partners for us in a variety of things we do. In fact, I had the opportunity to serve to co-chair the Startup 20 sustainability track along with Dr. Chintan Vaishnav from Atal Innovation Mission during a very successful G20 presidency. So this is how government is actually bringing together large industry, innovation, um, all together under one umbrella. Industry itself, so industry associations, and I used to be president of Bombay Chamber of Commerce, we actually created a whole new sustainability track and climate action track, and strongly supported by large companies, the Tatas, the Mahindras, the Godrej's, Birlas, all companies today, for multiple reasons, they have to demonstrate how they are decarbonizing. Large companies all have set net zero goals, whether it's 2040, 2050, 2070. So they have to decarbonize their processes. They have to switch out. And again, the government has EPR, so extended producer responsibility, for plastics. So they have to switch out of plastics into sustainable packaging material. So renewable energy is low hanging fruit. Packaging is a harder nut to crack because sustainable packaging is more expensive. Moving into sustainable agriculture, effluent water treatment, um, waste management, right? All of these need new technologies. The adoption is not happening, not because they don't have intent. They have intent, but the solutions have to exist, and the solutions have to be commercially viable and scalable at low cost. So there is no room here in India for the green premium. We cannot afford the green premium. So consequently, a green solution has to be at least cost competitive, if not less. And that is where industry has to be brought into the picture. A lot of companies, I serve on the board of Tata Power, for example, and Nestle both, we have large incubation innovation hubs that are supporting startups and giving them pilot opportunities, sandboxing, to see what technology can work and scale. So industry is doing its bit. I think founders, definitely, we are seeing so much flow that is coming from the early stage innovation ecosystem for startups. And then academia has to play a big role as well. So connecting our universities, both in India and globally, to some of these new solutions that need to get created, the labs that need to get funded and supported with industry, and very importantly, catalytic capital. So DFIs, development finance institutions, we are strongly supported by SIDBI, by FCTO, think more of that capital actually has to flow in today. Today, there's less capital available for innovation financing. We hope to have that multiply rapidly over the next few years. Blended finance is another tool that helps to offset some of the risk and propel growth. So I think all of this has to work together.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights. Um, Now, I'd like you to please speak a little bit about the grand challenge that is on with Startup India. If you could, ma'am, please.
So very, very happy to share. And Tanvi, this is a fantastic example of your question that you asked. How does this all come together? I think the grand challenge, and I hope we have the Startup India team on the call, is really a co-creation of Avaana, Climate and Sustainability Fund. And by the way, we are the first climate focused, completely thematically focused climate and sustainability fund out of India. But it is a co creation. So I have to give full credit to Startup India as well. So we co-created this over the last several months, saying much like we have the National Startup Awards, and there's a lot of support, and frankly, the fintech consumer internet ecosystem is well developed. Let's create a platform that will provide some spotlighting, encouragement. The awards, the financial award by itself is the smaller part of it, right? The more valuable part is industry connectivity, mentorship, the piloting, sandboxing opportunities, and again the spotlighting and recognition. And this, the grand challenge that was launched in December, it is ongoing right now. I will invite people to participate. Looks at 7 themes: energy transition and mobility, sustainable food and agriculture systems, industrial decarbonization and built environment. So, SaaS solutions for companies, emission reduction, flue gas capture, green cement, things like that, circular economy and waste, climate financing, carbon capture, removal and storage, and climate data and reporting. So, see, these are the 7 themes. Challenge is ongoing. Now, let me go to where the collaboration comes in. We are so delighted that when in the design principle itself, we said this cannot just be Avaana or just Startup India. So there's government, strong support from Atal Innovation Mission that has come in as a sort of founding partner to the challenge, so to speak. And then we have a number of startup support partners on the financing side, knowledge partners that are bringing in their technical expertise, and industry partners that are providing a platform. I mentioned the benefits, the big benefits really. Of course, there's some monetary award, but it's recognition and mentorship. It's support to innovators and entrepreneurs. There's the networking, you create your own cohort. Startup partners include SIDBI. SIDBI has created a very unique, innovative green seeding funding, not just for the winners, the ultimate 2, 3, 4 winners that will be there, but the folks that make it to the final shortlist. They will all get support from SIDBI on green seeding fund. We have NetApp Accelerator, Google, AWS. We have companies like Nestle, Tata Power, Cement. They're all coming in to support. We have excellent knowledge partners who are authorities in their spaces. We have incubators like Startup 20 and Social Alpha, but we also have GAP, which is the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, RMI India, Rocky Mountain Institute, and D3, BIRAC, CEEW, CCAMP. So this is really strong partnership, and we keep adding partners to this as we go along. So very recently, we just got confirmation also from a couple of other large companies in consumer as well as agri spaces that will come in as startup support partners.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to give a shout out to any entrepreneurs in the audience that are in this climate tech space to please urge you to apply for this grand challenge. Um, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We hope this session has been both engaging and enlightening for all of you. I would like to extend a special thank you to Anjali ma'am for joining in and sharing your story with us. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.